Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Couplepreneur podcast. Today we are talking with my man, Emanuel, who is absolutely one of my favorite graphic designers on LinkedIn. He is a wizard at taking complicated business ideas, breaking them down, and expressing them visually so that way they hit differently, harder. And honestly, if you are creating graphics on LinkedIn, if you're creating content on LinkedIn, this is the episode for you. It's such a great masterclass in how to think divergently, how to take complicated ideas, like I said, break them down, create something that's going to be visually appealing. He's going to take us step by step, actually sharing his screen, breaking down his workflow, how he thinks about these things, how he thinks divergently and comes up with all of these different concepts, and how ultimately you can create something with total vibes. And this guy is a vibey creator. So if you've ever wanted to create graphics for social media and you want them to stand out, you want them to pop, then this episode's for you. It's going to actually, like I said, take you step by step through his workflow, exactly how he does it, and you can follow right along. Without further ado, this is one of my favorite episodes with Emanuel. How about we dive in, and what you've created here, just to level set, is a kind of the workflow that you have taken for one of your clients or one of your customers, how you're breaking down ideas, thinking through the branding, and ultimately creating some really cool graphics that help tell a story. So I'm just going to kind of hand the mic over to you, and if you just want to talk about the process, and I might jump in with some questions and ideas, but let's see what we can do.
Yeah, so basically, this is a piece that I was working after I listened to one of Josh Spector's podcast episode. I listened, that was probably 4 or 5 months ago, and then it was quite interesting. And recently I was on another episode because I'm a big fan of Josh's work. And then he mentioned that, episode again. And I was like, okay, I think I'm gonna revisit that because I'm kind of building, my own offers, and it was an episode about creating like an offer for your services or for your product. And so I went back to that, and I wanted to transform that into a visual summary. So basically how it begins is, of course, a lot on the head, but then at some point I will always start, on paper. I have like the sketchbook here, and then you will see like quite a big one. Here is it live. So I always try to think of like, what are, the main things that I want to share about that episode. And I will start trying to, what are cool things that I can bring it visually? Because there is a lot of information, and the whole purpose of, doing this is to try to convey this information in a visual way. And of course, there's a bit of prep work on condensing the text in the transcript of the podcast that I do with, of course, a bit of help of AI. But I always make sure that I also listen to the episode, because AI, it's good, but it's not 100% reliable. And then I always try to jot down a few things on paper, because at least for me, and I think for a lot of people, it's easier to think through the pen than to go straight to the computer and try to do something directly to the computer. Because if I come here and let's say I try to start sketching something or like do something directly here, I might get blocked because I am focused too much on the tool here and not on the idea. And I think that's the biggest main step is you need to think of the ideas you want to communicate in the content you are creating. And in this case, I was building towards like a visual summary - infographic. So I wanted to see what kind of cool things I could, represent. And you're gonna see here, like I wanted to have, let's say, maybe Josh, illustration somewhere, like kind of like a banner here with the title of this episode. And then another idea here was like about avoiding false choices, as you can see here in the preview of the text. So it's like, how can I represent avoiding false choices? And here maybe it's like a bit out of context, but in the episode you're gonna see like he talking about when people get in the process of selecting what they're gonna offer or what the brand is, what the niche is, and then he's talking about I need to either pick A, B, or C, but in fact, at least on his perspective, he's saying you actually can, do all together. Like you can, have it all, but maybe you will be known for something more than the others, but doesn't mean that the other things they will be out of your business or out of your niche. So this was just to start. And then there's like many ways you can represent this. So like I thought, I can actually represent this as like checkboxes. That you can actually have multiple choices versus like a single selection choice. And later you'll see this evolved a bit from the sketch. It didn't stay like this. And then I went like, okay, what's the second thing? I can say, build around the transformation. And then there's like this more, I would say, cliche type of visual is like you have like a place you are, place A to place B, and then you cross it and you transform yourself into the new thing you want to be. And then I go about the main message of this content and trying to think of things I can represent. Doesn't mean that like here in this stage I'm gonna stick to all the things I wrote or I drew here, but they are just like a starting point. And maybe it will seem a bit linear as I say here, because that's the only way I can tell you without getting messy, but the process kind of goes a bit on like coming back to the pen and paper and going here a bit to the digital part. And I dropped here, for example, and then I went to start doing a basic, like a basic wireframe for the piece, because I was like, maybe I can test the text and see where the visuals can fit with. Sometimes I do that on paper as well. I do like a rough sketch on paper.
With like big boxes and circles and just...
Yeah. Like just very basic. I mean, I probably can find here while I talk, but basically big, okay. I didn't even need to do much. I try to point to the screen, but you'll see it's like just very rough, just to get the idea out. And this is something I learned actually in the design school. And the smaller you do the designs, the faster you think the idea, because you don't get too attached to the details, and you are forced by the technically restriction of it to do just something very simple, and then you can test more things. In that case here, like if you go to the computer, you will kind of spend more time because the tool allow you to do that. So I would say for someone just starting, maybe it's better the pen and paper, because you're not gonna get stuck on this part in the computer, and then later you can transfer this to the computer.
Well, and that was that idea of thumbnailing, I think, is where you actually take a piece of paper and you fold it into small little squares, and then unfold it, and then in each one of those you have to run like an iteration, and it forces you, that constraint of that space forces you to have like multiple iterations. You get to like a more creative spot than what you would have started with.
Yeah, it's this technique kind of became popular when design sprints started to become a thing, and I think it's called Crazy 8. And then you do 8 thumbnails or 8 variations of whatever you're trying to design under 8 minutes. So basically you have 1 minute per thumbnail, which is actually quite a lot.
Yeah.
With time you can do in much faster time than 8 minutes.
Yeah.
But I guess who's not used to it, takes 8 minutes or maybe a bit more. But time restriction is actually amazing.
Yeah. Before we continue on down there, would you mind like jumping back? I know on the Fig board, there is a chance to see Josh Spector, like his, if you keep going back,
this part,
his like brand and style, just like who that guy is. And I noticed the color schemes, which we'll probably get back into later.
Yeah. This is
just to give
our dear Josh.
Our dear Josh. And then you're already like collecting some colors and things, which I'm sure will come in. But again, that probably comes after you build out your system.
Yeah.
Cool.
So just for reference, he is very worth
the
follow. So please go follow them.
There you go.
But yeah, that part actually comes a bit later. So here, I will try a few layouts to see where things fit best. You're gonna see, for example, here there's like different layouts that I was trying out. here with the main message in the center, title on top. And then I was like, okay, I kind of like more the way it is here. Also because I think the structure to read would be easier than here in the middle, and then people would need to go back, to the top. And knowing that usually people will read these things more like a Z pattern, it might work, but then I didn't want to risk much. I also exploring, I thought I cannot fit much the visuals, like they would be kind of a bit cramped in those spaces. So then, I was evolving the shape, and I was like, okay, here sounds good, but maybe can get better. Still looks a bit messy. And then trying to not compromise on the, readability of the information. This is like kind of the structure that, I moved for. So I had the text here and the placeholders for where the visuals would come. And here is like, this is one way of doing this, just to emphasize, is like you can actually prioritize the visuals in the layout and then figure out where to put the text. I can do the other way.
Yeah.
Because the same for content. Some people will start content by the text. Some people will start by the visuals. And then like I often see myself doing the two ways. Sometimes I have the visual, like I want to create this visual, and I go and I first picture the message as a visual, and then I distill the text from that. And sometimes I do the opposite, like here I prioritize the text first, but you can do both ways. And so here I have the layout, and then what you will see that I start adding color in the visuals. So okay, here I will not have how to show everything that happened until I got here. But then the process happens on an iPad where I can do like the free drawing. And you will see, for example, that the avoid false choices evolved a little bit from that idea. I can just quickly jump back. You'll see they were like simple checkboxes. It was like the beginning of the visual, how I would represent the avoid false choices. But then as I was working and I tried to put this together as the visual, I was like, maybe I can do something like stacking, because you are stacking your skills or your experiences. And then the stacking part was like, okay, you can choose individual, but you can stack everything together and have it, all. So in this way, I would try to represent this idea of false choices. So a lot of times, what I am trying to do is to create these analogies, and this you can do in text as well, right? But then you can also do it visually. You just need to start training your brain to make these connections. And I know maybe it sounds easier when I say than doing, but in the end, it's a process that you kind of need to get used to doing.
Yeah. And once you feel like that habit or that pathway gets formed, does it become easier then to get that kind of divergent thought and the ability to see the metaphors, or at least to think in terms of metaphors?
Oh yeah, definitely. It's like, don't want to brag, but now I would say it kind of comes as second nature to me, because I have been doing these things not only as visual design for social media, but basically in design in general. You're gonna translate something into visual, at least on the visual design part. So then you start kind of creating this habit of thinking of like many ways I can represent this thing visually. Or like when you're creating a logo for a brand, it's also the same. You are conveying some message in a visual. It's just that here is more like illustrated. A logo might be, more abstract. But in general, when you start doing this and you do it often, then it becomes more automatic. I think as any skill you start developing, it start becoming your second nature when doing things. So for example, in this visual in specific, I knew when I was drawing, I kind of felt like this is a bit off, like the checkboxes. Like it sounds like maybe either too simple or in a way like too plain. Like I thought that it could still have like some other way to represent that, and that would be a little bit more complex, but also more unique. I always try, of course, not always you can do, but I always try to go beyond what is, let's say, the first thing you associate with an idea. So when you are thinking about your post and you want to, let's say, create, the visual that will go with a content on LinkedIn, for example, or a newsletter, if you go with the first thing that comes to your mind, most likely other people will do the same. And that's why you see a lot of these, for example, this one.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because it's a very common and like simple way to communicate transformation, reaching a destination, and so on.
Mm-hmm.
And that's fine. But when you try to go a bit, deeper, then you get, new things that maybe will be more unique or less seen by other people. And then people think like, oh my God, that's so genius. So that's what I try. Maybe not always I will manage to, but then that's at least the the goal.
Whoa, I just jumped down visually. I saw the build around the transformation. So your example of that. Wow, that's cool.
I didn't think about that, but
Like
that's true.
that's your version of it was like the alternative style of how can I visualize it differently. Oh, that's a really good one.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't notice, as I said. But as you can see here, for example, the build that around the transformation, how I could think of transformation. You can think many ways. You can think as a metamorphosis, like the butterfly, the larva becoming something. This, for example, was the stone becoming a diamond. And then it's like little stories that you can tell your audience through the visuals that you could also write this. You could say, create something nice from like the stone, and then you break into, you start polishing, and then you get into a diamond. It's rare, blah blah. The same way you can do it visually, and if you can do as text, I'm pretty sure you can do, for example, as visual. It just requires the technique, some technique. And here I use, let's say, my computer, but if you do on pen and paper, it's also valid. If you do using AI, it's like also valid. It's just a matter of the expression. Like the visual is how you are expressing yourself in the context, and then you just need the technique to do that. It could be oil painting. So basically, yeah, then I drew all these in a software called Linearity Curve, if somebody's curious. But you can also use Adobe Illustrator, which is the most common tool probably. But Linearity Curve I liked because, one, it's not Adobe and it's cheaper. And it also has both apps for iPad and for computer. So I often do the iPad, I do free drawings, and then I take them from the from the iPad to computer. I finish them a bit on the Linearity Curve, and then I will bring here to Figma. So like the color adding part and like all these smaller details will come to the software on the computer. And then once I do them, I start putting them here in this layout that I had pre-built. So then I kind of knew where they would go. I would just make sure that they have the right size and so on. But then here's the thing: this was one version, and from here, what I would recommend is that don't keep changing only in the version you are working, but start creating more versions of this. So you will see that when I come here, I start having more options. And then I was working here into like, okay, maybe I can test different colors. Okay, I didn't like this. I will try this other color. And then you can start creating multiple variations of whatever you want to test and then compare. Because sometimes, and I say that because I do that myself, because that you change something. I didn't like this color. I changed the color here. And then you're like, but I kind of liked it. Now that I changed it, I see it, I want it back. Then, you start going back and forth with Control Command Z, doing undo, and then you do redo, and then you keep going back and forth like, some crazy person.
Duplicate. Yeah,
duplicate. And because then you can see later the big picture. Like when I zoom out here, you will see there's like a lot of things. And maybe could have been even more, like if I wanted to really stretch out. So here I was trying to find, the colors, because this I was going to share in my profile. And I thought, okay, now I have, kind of, the colors in a way that I can adapt this color to other, brand colors, like Josh's brand colors. And I was like, now I'm gonna test, because maybe it's not gonna work, but at least I have something to go with for my own audience. So then it's when we go to the beginning, and I started preparing the work to receive, Josh's colors.
Okay,
Do
and
you
I
want to
want to
say
pause you
something?
there. Yeah, for sure, because I have a question on this, because this is where we are struggling right now, is color theory. And not necessarily color theory in terms of the psychology between like blue, orange, yellow. That's what I feel like everyone comes to. But I'm curious, like I see this gradient of colors where you're doing like tints
Mhm.
and shades. How do you just visually like pick those out that look good, or is there like a mathematical formula for how you adjust hexadecimal, I'm just so fascinated by this, because color matters so much and you nail it. And I love the different shades all through that one. So we have this bright orange, but it makes it really difficult to do a lot with it if it's just this really loud orange color. So it'd be cool to be able to do, a bunch of different stuff. So now I'm asking personally, like if
Variations,
someone
yeah.
has a brand color, like what do you do? How do you do? How do you think about that?
So here there is a lot of credit to Josh designer. Recently, because I follow Josh already for a long time, I saw him going from this red here to green, and
Okay.
so yeah, kudos to the designer first for choosing the color, because here um, I'm just replicating the color. But about your question, how you do these variations? Yes, you can do here and build. So like I would say for the content design, you don't need all these variations. Maybe like you could choose like every other. So here
Mm-hmm.
there's like 10, but maybe you could live with 5. For example, my colors, I don't know if we'll show in this file here. Let's see. So I can show my colors. They come like in this set. Even though I'm Brazilian, somehow I have Argentinian blue. And then, I have the set. But I can tell you, I mostly use these two, these, and eventually like a lighter
Uh-huh.
tone. So just
Yeah.
to make you feel better, you don't need that many. But then there
Mm-hmm.
is automation that you can do, that I use automation here. But if you want to build something, then yeah, you need to come here and kind of know that in this color picker, if I move up, I reduce saturation, and down, I increase saturation.
And are you
And
like
you even
holding
see
shift in
here,
order to like keep it from going side to side? Or how are you
yeah,
keeping it in
I'm
line?
doing that. So
Okay.
you keep shift. Actually, it doesn't, it keeps in a straight line, but not so much. But if you make it looser, then yeah, definitely. You can also use code here. So like, I'm
Uh-huh.
not gonna get into much detail, but for example, this HSB means hue, saturation, brightness. So like if I reduce brightness to 10, it's gonna get, like very low. If I put it 100, it will go up. Then the saturation, sorry, I said
Uh-huh.
saturation, the vertical actually is the horizontal. So saturation comes here, and then it loses
Uh-huh.
the like the tint of the color. Then it gets more
Mm-hmm.
faded. So if you saturate more, it's gonna get brighter. Um, and the hue
Gotcha.
here will be basically this wheel that you choose which spectrum of the rainbow, literally, you
Uh-huh.
want. So then, of course, you have your orange. I know it's not
So
exactly
yeah,
yours, but
I sent you my
you send
orange
me.
is
Okay,
yeah,
give me. Let's do it.
FF7845.
Let's do your orange.
Yeah, we might be losing some audience here,
But
but this is now
look,
I'm
it
so
was
fascinated by this.
a bit. It was a bit close.
Yeah.
A bit,
That's pretty good.
less opaque.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, then you would, go here. Let's say I can duplicate,
Uh-huh.
and you can go like this, and
Start
start
to get some
reducing
different.
saturation. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and then you go and so on. But there is a way to do it automatically, and You go, well, here's on Figma. Probably if you don't use Figma and you want just to try your brand colors, there is a website called Coolors. I don't remember how many O's, but like it's color with many O's. And we can check maybe the website .co.
Yeah, we'll put that in the show notes.
CO.
Mhm.
In there you can have many variations like from your brand. And on Figma they also have, if I'm not mistaken, a plugin, but don't know if I will be able to. Oh, I can open. So you will see here, you can actually take here Adam's color and oh dear, here's a bit more. And then you will have the main color and I can lock it in. And if I press generate, it's gonna find matching colors automatically in many ways, because there is many ways to combine colors. There's like contrast colors, which is like green. It's on the other side of the spectrum, like in the color wheel, not getting into much detailed technicalities, but it's on the other spectrum. If you want to do matching colors that they are, let's say, closer to your spectrum, would be more like red or would be like purplish. Let's see if we would propose like yellow, it's closer in the color wheel. So it would suggest, also has some contrasting colors. So often you see red and green or orange and green together, orange and blue together goes well. Like if you put them like this and you choose like a tone of blue, they go well. If I take the suggestion here and I put green, it will also go well. So like they are complementary colors in that way. So you can use colors, and I can show briefly here the one I used. Just need to find it. It was called shader. Then I choose if I want lighter or darker. So let's say lighter, because your color is already on the darker side. I will put 5, and then boom.
Wow.
Wait, let me just put
very cool.
Here.
Yeah.
So then you have like 5 colors you can use. I can send the colors so you can use later.
That's great. Yeah.
So then you have it, like you have like a basic palette. If you want to do 10, yeah, like you can do 10. It's just gonna make more variations. And I just don't like that. It brings me all the way there. I don't know. I think I did some mistake here. Wait. Because that. Okay. Yeah, I was selecting some white and he made 10 shades of white.
Of white.
You see, 10 shades you have, but you see, like, it's not so much worth because you have a lot of like very similar, almost identical shades.
Cool.
So yeah, also the tip of extension here.
I love that. And yes, I would love to see some of those colors numbers afterwards. But let's say now you have these the colors that you want to use for a client. Maybe they're, one of our audiences trying to create their own images. They get to the point where they have their color palette. Like, where do you then go from there? And thank you for showing me all that. That was my own digression, but I appreciate it.
You need to get some value from this as well, right? So when you get to the point, I would say you can do this totally gray in the beginning, just thinking that you're gonna have the darker tones in your darker color of your brand and lighter tones in the lighter version. So that actually you don't overthink the color yet. You can just like create the visuals and put all the design together in gray, like I did until this phase. But then you go forward and still work with gray. And at least in Figma, it's pretty easy to change colors globally. So like if I want to just change here, it would change, in everywhere that I use the color. But anyway. And another thing is when I wanted to do Josh's color, then I went to the step that I just did. I prepared all the color palette to see what I could use. And then I jumped into adapting the layout to the colors. So you can see, for example, I started with this, and this follows the lighter version. And it looks okay-ish. At least that's, my feeling about it. But then I was thinking about, his brand, and he's always more bold, always the dark green color is what he shares on his social media and everywhere, despite his profile. He is using in the profile, let's say, a lighter tone, but all the rest is darker. So as I don't have any data from Josh, for example, I have to live with, I see more of the darker color, so it's his main color, the color that people will associate him with. Because let's be honest, how many times you are on your feed and you just don't know the name of the person? You just know that it's that, orange head or the yellow head or the blue head.
Yeah.
So that's what builds, your brand. Most of the times, at least visually, if you can do only one thing about branding anything on social media, is like pick a color and repeat it. Repeat that color until you can, because it doesn't matter if you didn't choose like with color theory, if you pick from like, the eyedropper here and you like it. But if you repeat that, people will start to associate you with that color. And that's already great, because like now that he had to change his color because before it was red, he will have time for the audience and everybody to adjust, to, okay, now Josh is not coming with the red black thing, it's the green thing. And this builds through the repetition, through using. So I thought maybe I would try the darker one. But then, it was like kind of a play of testing many things. Like I tested here all green. I tested with, he has another color, which is kind of like a gold color. So I thought maybe I can try the gold color here. And then I went back to here, to lighter version. There is bubbles in different colors here as well, like darker bubbles, lighter bubbles, like what, matches better, because here it got a bit too dark. And a simple principle you can always strive for in your visuals is contrast. And black on a darker color will have less contrast than, let's say, white. So a lighter bubble will have more contrast with black, unless I wanted to change the color of the trace, which was not much the case because the white trace doesn't have the same impact as the dark. So I was trying out things, and then even tried this one with the lighter green approach, but then I didn't even
That's a wild one.
spend time like this. This would be like a crime, so like don't do that. Yellow on green, this type of tone. No.
No. But you got to try
So
it.
yeah, here you gotta try it. You gotta try. Like here, there is nobody pushing me to do anything or like approving or disapproving. Like you can explore, and that's the thing. Like you don't need to show any of this to anyone. It's yours, and then you can explore as much as you can. The more you explore, the better. And I usually like to to marinate, designs. And what I mean by that is that I do some things and then I leave it, and I just come next day less tired of looking at it, fresh perspective, and then you do some final adjustments. The same for text would apply. So when you're doing design or any content, really, it's always good to give some time. I know, like, it's very like fast, the fast pace, life we live with social media and having to post every day, yada yada. But then if you have time to leave your content to rest for a bit and then come back next day, at least to do some small revisions, you will see things you didn't see before, and then you can improve. So then this marinated for a little bit, and then I reached the final adjustments here. So you see I went with like a darker tone for Josh. For my brand, I thought that would be better, a lighter tone. And then I went with the lighter bubbles, kept, the gold color just for titles, for some accent color. This is something that everybody also can have. And this comes to those contrasting colors that we talked before. If most of your design will be orange, then maybe you need some accent that is contrasting. And then that can be black, like you guys use, but it can be blue. And the blue will be very contrasting to the orange, will be like your accent. Yeah. It's not a color that you're gonna overuse, It's the color just to, make highlights. And this will be, let's say, the color that will be more dominant. And you might have like a third color, like intermediate, for example, or like you have white, which is also good. So then after, resting a bit on the design, you do some final adjustments. You can maybe tweak, the text, tweak, some of the visual, some color, and then adjust to your liking. And basically I finished like this. This I still didn't publish, and maybe by the time this recording will go live, will be published. But it's on my backlog, and then it's there. And from here, I will export and transform it to a picture to put on social media. Then I have of course captions to it and so on. But I guess what we are interested here is the visual part.
Yeah.
So yeah, basically this is the process of one of these posts. Probably would vary if I would take another one. But yeah, I hope this was interesting to see.
Oh, for sure. I mean, honestly, like I've just been fascinating this whole time to see the behind the scenes. A couple things that stood out to me, and like you tell me how maybe you got to the point where you were using this as your process. The idea of starting with the pen and paper, I think, is something you had mentioned as being really important. Were you always someone that just would visually create, or I guess just kind of like as you were growing up, and is that your first inclination, is to start doodling and drawing and creating that visual representation of your ideas?
I was not this kind of like movie character that the teacher is talking and then the person is like doodling, like like crazy. But I noticed very early that I was the person that if was, let's say, an oral lesson, then it was a nightmare for me because I needed that visual, assistance of the chalkboard to kind of grasp, to get the information that was being passed to me. So since early, I was very visual in that way, that I would learn better if I read than if I listen, which is curious because I love podcasts. But that's also why I started doing these visual summaries, because I thought I can learn much more doing this process.
Yeah.
And of course, kind of teaching to others, bringing to other people. And we know like this, I think it's Maslow pyramid, or no, whose pyramid is about teaching, learning.
Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Maslow's.
Is that? Yeah.
So no, it's not that one. So I'm confusing
Nope.
some other pyramid, like how you absorb, information, like teaching, you absorb more when you just review, when you just read, and so on.
Oh,
I forgot. But anyway, so yeah, I was more visual. Of course, I played around with other things like that. They are creative since very very early. Like I used to, I don't know, customize my own T-shirts as like 7-year-old. I had like a Digimon T-shirt that I did with stencil, or like, I don't know. Yeah, I was always creating something, copying stuff from others that we even spoke today.
Yeah, we were talking about that. So I just posted on LinkedIn today about how like some of the best bands out there started as cover bands, where they were just literally playing playing whatever was popular at the time. And that idea of copying great work is not only just okay, but it's actually kind of the way to really start to find your voice. If you just go off in your own room and try and like create something from nothing, it's you might hit strike something, but really sitting down and copying work. And I do that on the copywriting side. Like I'll take some incredible sales letters or website copy or LinkedIn post even, and just literally write them by hand, word for word, exactly as they are. Just because there's something about like letting it all flow through you and that muscle memory. And yeah, is that kind of where you're at with copying?
I just wanted to say that's really impressive that you actually go and copy by hand. And I do think that copying by hand, you truly memorize. I say that because I noticed when I was trying to learn new languages, if I would be more on like apps and like, other things, I would kind of learn, but not so much. But when I had the time to write down the words and what it means and so on, that's when I fixated more the information. But regarding copying, it's just that it reminded me of, when I was also little. I would get comics and I would just like trace over the comics and then like
Yeah.
do like all the characters that I liked and, things that I, would see and so on. So it was pretty nice. And I think there is a lot of similarities also with your process in a way. Like sometimes I will see, like I'll go through Pinterest and I remember once I saw was actually a craft for kids to do like a cup, like a paper cup. And then was a paper cup with the other paper cup on top. You would cut out some like space on the top one and basically would make like a boy changing clothes. You could draw many clothes in the one that would be inside. And then as you flip the outside one, it would change the clothes of the boy you draw outside. And I got that and I created a video about that back then. That was basically, I got the format, the structure, and the message was different, but the structure was the same, like the same idea. And then was about creators wearing many hats. So instead of t-shirt, was creators with different heads changing, like the video editor, the writing guy, the design guy, and so on. So a lot of times we can do that. We can totally get the structure and adapt to the message we want to say. And I think copying is important. Of course, I think when we say copying, is important to say that is not to go copy exactly what the other person say, post and credit as yourself, because then it's like copying in a bad way. But copying this way that we are talking, that's totally fine.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. I love it. Okay, let's say kind of as we're wrapping up the conversation here, let's say someone is interested in using graphics in their art or like in their social media presence, but maybe they don't have the best artistic skills, or they're seeing this and they're saying, Emanuel, that makes so much sense for you. Like you've got these skills, but what about me? I'm a bad drawer. I can't, design my way out of a paper bag. What would you say? Like, what are some like easy, quick wins for someone who's getting started? Maybe that's tools like AI. Maybe that's, where would you send them?
Come to me. I can do that for you.
Yeah, for sure.
Jokes apart, I would say AI might be a way. I think it's just, it's like, it's close, to be able to do that. Still cannot do everything. Probably you would be able to do something with AI. You can go to, let's say, there is stock photos, but there's also stock icons and everything that you can actually use pre-made. So it's like buying this mix of ingredients for making pancakes instead of, I don't know, mixing everything from scratch yourself. You get the things already mixed and you put together the cake. So I would say you can go in websites like FreePic or the Noun Project. We can list down, I know saying like this maybe a bit too fast, but then there is also 8 icons, I think, as well. I mean, there's like so many flat icons. There's like icons are a great way to convey information. And I think that's why I'm seeing a lot of icon websites. A lot of them offer free options, but then here's the thing. They're free to use for personal use. If you will use this, let's say, to make money, and you want to make sure you're not getting in trouble, then you pay subscriptions to have the rights to use those icons. You can also, find illustration databases as well. I think there is one called Humans with a lot of use as well, which have like more elaborate illustrations, but then I would say the icons are easier to take one or two and maybe mix together than a whole illustration that was made to certain purpose. But these are ways you can, get ready to use material to create your visuals. The only downside is that a lot of people have this access to the same things. So you might not be as unique as maybe you are aiming to, but then what you can do is to try at least to learn how to customize. And let's say you open a tool like Figma, which is also free, or Canva. I mean, the tool you think will be easier for you to learn. and just try, okay, this icon came here is black. Can I make it, I don't know, pink is my color. My brain color is pink. Can I make it pink? It will already change the game, because a lot of people will simply share the black icon, or they will just get untouched the asset from the website and repost. And I think it's already much better than doing that, or just sharing like this average, billboard design, or the
I saw your latest post where you were talking about
the
billboard being shared over and over again.
Because then you just blend in. You don't stand out doing what everything else is doing. You need to do something different, and maybe you will not think it's the best, but at least somebody will recognize you by what you are doing, by adding your brand colors, adding your personality, the way you build things together, and everybody can learn these things also. Maybe it will not be a matter of, I want to learn. Then you need to question yourself. But everybody can learn. It's not like a gift I was not born with this. I had to study and learn a lot.
Yeah. Well, and I think the takeaway from me was I'm looking through this whole process is that sometimes we get stuck on the final product thinking through, I can't draw. And what we just saw here was that there was so much that preceded the actual drawing. That was so much work and thought that went into it before we actually got to the point of drawing. And that's, how can you break down ideas into their simplest form? How can you really think about how you want to visualize something? And then, maybe it's an icon pack, maybe it's, some other resource, maybe it is just you hand drawing something, but that comes after you get a chance to really understand what message are you actually trying to convey to your audience, and how can you do so clearly.
Yeah. And if I can add like maybe a last bonus tip, is you can always think in layers. You can start from like the most rough layer, and then you're gonna do something like very squiggly and like just like get the idea out, and then you refine it a bit more. Like, okay, I like the shape, I like this, and I have the picture here, text here, blah blah. And then until you get to like a more refined picture, and you go like working kind of in layers. And another thing that helps is creating mind maps. If you don't want to start like thinking visually, just do a mind map and think of like you have the central thing you want to represent, and start finding connections to it that maybe you can combine. Like you can think like, it's business. What's business? It's money. It's like helping people. It's solving problems. It's this and that. And the further you go in the connections, less obvious is that connection, which makes less obvious to make a visual about it. And you can work like this in the beginning until you get more confident into going into doing the visual. And then from this, you can go and search your icons.
Beautiful. Beautiful. I love it. Okay. Well, Emanuel, thank you so much for sitting down with us today, showing us a little behind the scenes, how you come up with these visuals and graphics. And I know you joked about it, but honestly, if you do want some incredible visuals, Emanuel is the guy for you. So reach out to him on LinkedIn is probably the best place, I would assume, to get connected.
Yes.
And I know we got some graphics from him, and we're super pleased, like his ability to take even posts that we had already done and then turn them into something that just looked cool, and conveyed the message, hit the brainstem in it a little different way. Yeah, big fan. Can't give you enough shout outs.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it, man. Yeah, I would be more than happy to help.
Thank you guys so much for sitting down and listening to this episode. I really hope you got something out of it. I know I was taking notes the whole time, just trying to level up our content creation game. And one of the best ways to do that is with some beautiful, colorful, vibey graphics. So shout out to Emanuel. Thank you so much for working with us. If you want to check him out, definitely hit him up on LinkedIn. You'll find him, that big blue circle out there, and we'll definitely link to everything in the show notes. If you could do me one favor though, and that's share this episode with someone who you think would find value in it. Someone who is maybe, like I said, on their own content creation journey, someone, a graphic designer, an artist, just someone who is interested in learning and experiencing what it's like to build and create something just beautiful. So do me a favor, share this episode with one of them, like and subscribe, all of the other things. With that being said, thank you guys so much for listening, and tune in next week for the Couplepreneur podcast.